Hi, I'm Kimberly. I'm one of the children's librarians at the Westland Public Library. I do outreach to schools and come from school libraries. Lots of little kids and teachers know me as the book fairy. I don't have my wings or crown or wand with me, but often I'm called the book fairy. So I want to say thank you for joining me today and watching this video. For those of you that I've chatted with live before, this should just basically be a review, and if I haven't chatted with you live, I hope this offers some points in making read-alouds to children just a little bit better. So the first thing, and I'm just going to talk in some generalities for just a moment, is know that children love to be read to. I remember in schools, even fifth graders, they're too cool for school sometimes. Kids love to be read to. It's really, really important. They may not show it, but they do love, whether it's in your lap or in a read aloud, kids love to listen to a story. In choosing a book, choose one that you like. It will show if you don't like it. If it's boring or unlikable to you, it will be boring and unlikable to children. Before you read, you want to preview the book, and I would suggest reading it a couple of times. You may want to think about maybe some questions you want to ask or some places you want children to notice that you can point out. And then a question I always want to reflect on when I choose a book is, why do I personally think the author wrote the book? What was the purpose? And then one other thing, I think it's a common mistake, I know I've made it, is thinking that a read aloud is going to go really short. A really great read aloud probably takes 15 to 20 minutes, and that means that it is the time of reading the book. It's also time for your reflection. It's time for kids to ask any questions or to notice things, and it's time for discussion after we're done. So if you're going to do a read aloud, I would definitely shoot for about 15 to 20 minutes. I want to touch on a few points when choosing a book. When you're choosing a book, I like to think about what the purpose of the book is. So this is probably more for teachers, but if you're doing read alouds, you may want to ask the teacher what purpose she'd like the book to serve. Is that purpose to learn a new concept, to learn a scientific concept, or to gain information? And that might be an informational picture book. Or is it character education? Are we trying to understand empathy or kindness? Or is it just pure fun and you want kids to laugh and enjoy themselves, which sometimes can be the best read alouds. I want you to remember that there are some outstanding nonfiction, or what I like to call informational picture books out there. And I think those are overlooked for read alouds. And you will get a list of some great books, and there's some fantastic informational picture books for kids. Also, don't underestimate the intellect of a child. Parents often would say, don't you feel like that's a little heavy for a kindergartner? No, I don't think it's too heavy. Kindergartners see all that is going on. They may not have context or words for it, but I bet they have some general understanding. So don't underestimate their intellect. And lastly, and I think this is really important, children love to see themselves reflected in a book. And that means their race, their gender, ways they identify themselves. If they are in a wheelchair, can we read a book with a child that is in a wheelchair as a character? So allowing a child to see themselves reflected, or what we call a mirror, is really, really important. And so many of the books that I think are outstanding offer so many opportunities for children to see themselves reflected, whatever kind of child it is. All right, I want to address that when you are reading to a group of children, it's very different than when you're reading with a child, typically on your lap or right beside you. But when you're reading to a group of children, the easiest way, I believe, after many times doing this, is to hold your book out to the left if you're right-handed, or if you're left-handed, to the right. But in doing so, it allows you to hold the book in one hand and have your other hand, your dominant hand, available to prompt and point and notice and things like that. So I like to do it this way, so that when you want to ask a really great engaging question or notice something, you're able to do that again with this hand. It's also a great opportunity to push a book forward so that they have a very clear view of those pages, and a great time again to ask those engaging questions. When introducing a book, I love to share the title, Gaston, as well as honoring both the author, which is Kelly DeBucchio, and the illustrator, Christian Robinson. And I think it's also really important to share the undies. And again, the undies being what's underneath the jacket, and we'll go over this later in the video, and then the end pages, so I like to show those. And then the last thing I like to do with the book before I start reading, again, is to talk about the title, author, and illustrator on the title page, which gives us one more clue. And then if you'd like, I tend to throw in, probably most of the times I'm reading to a group, why I chose the story. Again, offering them a little clue as to what this book could mean, may not for them, but I like to offer that up as well. A few tips for reading to kids. When you read with expression, it is lovely to be in the audience. When you notice things or wonder things while reading the book, it really helps a child to do the same and gives them an opportunity to raise their hand, answer a question that you're going to ask. Perhaps maybe you're going to say, ask them to make a prediction about what they think is going to happen next, or to reflect on why the author or illustrator used this in the book. So when they get to see you noticing or wondering, it helps them to do the same while listening to a read aloud. Watch your audience, and this is probably a little broader swath for kindergarten through 5th grade, but watch them. Are they rapt with attention, or are they bored? And adjust accordingly. And if they're rapt with attention, a great opportunity again to do some of that deep reflection, which helps them to do that as well. If you have a story, as you will see me read later on, that has, you can use a different voice with. So in one example of this is a character who is French. You can use a French accent. And if you have a book like Piggy and Elephant books, where you could use one voice for Piggy, one voice for Elephant, and in this text there is a third character. You could use a third voice for the worm. And the other part that I like to mention about some of these books, so the Piggy and Elephant series as well as the Monkey and Cake series, is they have text bubbles that mirror each character. So Piggy's is always pink, Elephant's is always gray, just like Elephant, and the new little worm in this book is green. This actually helps kids, so for kindergartners, helps them to distinguish how dialogue happens in a book. So again, this is the Piggy and Elephant by Mo Willems and Monkey and Cake series by Drew Daywalt. Use those different colored text bubbles that mirror the characters. They're fantastic for helping to understand dialogue. Okay, I want to talk to you guys about checking the undies. This is something that we teach kids, and of course it's hilarious, because it actually gives us some clues about what the book is about. So we start when they're actually toddlers talking about checking the undies. All books have some undies. And of course I always say, hope we do, you guys do too. So I'm using an example of If You Come to Earth by Sophie Blackall, which is an amazing text, by the way. But when we check the undies, undies have a part that is underneath the jacket of a book. So this is my personal copy, so it's not attached. That is a challenge when you have a library copy. But so here is the front cover of the jacket. Here is the back cover of the jacket. Beautifully illustrated pages. So you can see that this, of course, alludes to some long string of something. So when we take the cover of If You Come to Earth off, and if possible, I try to find a book that allows me to do so, we notice that what is underneath of the jacket is completely different, which is a total bonus. So sometimes they're exactly the same, but it's lovely when they are different. So here's the front cover under the jacket, and then the back cover under the jacket, which again gives us clues to the story. So what are these weird, interesting, alien-like things about? And then we're going to look at the end papers. And those are the papers that are typically decorative. On the front inside cover, again, giving us clues to the story. So the sun rising over a house, there's that thread again. And then the back end papers, little bit different. So Sophie Blackall is actually brilliant at doing end papers that are different front to back. Lots of them are the same front to back, but she does something completely different under the book jacket and then different from the front end pages. and they end pages as well. So there's that thread again with an alien ship, which when you read this story, if you come to Earth, it is all about if you were talking to somebody who didn't live on Earth, maybe this guy, what would you tell them? So this book talks about everything from food to transportation to how families are. It is a charming and lovely book. I'm not going to read this one, but it was a beautiful example of the Undies, again, with a jacket cover being very different from what's underneath, and then the front and back end pages being different. All right, I am going to do a read aloud as an example. And we are going to read Gaston by Kelly DePuccio and pictures by Christian Robinson. Of course, we always check the Undies first, and since this is my personal copy, I don't know where the jacket is, but you can see what we would see if we looked under the jacket, which is Darling Gaston. And then let's check the Undies, super cute, and the ones in the back are the same, so this one doesn't have them different. All right, let's read Gaston. Mrs. Poodle admired her new puppies, Fifi, Fufu, Ooh La La, and Gaston. So already I'm noticing something. Would you like to see them again? Fifi, Fufu, Ooh La La, and Gaston. Perfectly precious, aren't they? Mrs. Poodle thought so too. The puppies grew, as puppies do. 3 were no bigger than teacups. The 4th, however, continued to grow and grow until he was the size of a teapot. See? He's bigger than the others, isn't he? Mrs. Poodle took pride in teaching her puppies how to be proper pooches. They were taught to sip, never slobber. Good, well done, very nice, nice tray. They were taught to yip, never yap. Yip, 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 ruff. And they were taught to walk with grace, never race. Tip-toe, tippy-toe, whoa. Okay, so why do you think Gaston is having such a hard time doing what the other little poodles are doing? The puppies were also taught how to look pretty and pink, nibble their kibble, and ride in style. Whatever the lesson, Gaston always worked the hardest, practiced the longest, and smiled the biggest. Sounds like he's got a good work ethic, huh? Mrs. Poodle was very pleased with all of her puppies, Fifi, Fufu, Ooh La La, and Gaston. Spring arrived, and the proud mother was eager to show off her darlings. She took them to the park for their very first stroll in public. There was so much to see. Daffodils, ducklings, dogs. Oh dear, what do we have here? Okay, so what do we have right here? What do you see? Rocky, Ricky, Bruno, and Antoinette. Would you like to see them again? I know I would. Rocky, Ricky, Bruno, and Antoinette. This was more than a little awkward. Okay, so I want to ask you guys, I know you've been noticing, why would this be awkward? What are we seeing? I'm noticing that this dog looks more like those dogs, but he's not part of that family. See if we learned anything else. The mothers sized up their pups. The pups sized up their mothers. Oh, it seems there's been a terrible mistake, Mrs. Bulldog said, breaking the silence. Oui, oui, Mrs. Poodle said sadly. Whatever shall we do? Mrs. Bulldog could not come up with an answer. I guess we'll let them decide, she replied at last. Wonder what they're gonna do. Gaston and Antoinette were young, but even they could see that there had been a mix-up. the two puppies began to circle around and around the group. Gaston walked with grace. Antoinette raced. Gaston yipped. Antoinette yapped. And when they finally came to a stop, the puppies had traded places. There, that looked right. It just didn't feel right. So take a look again. They all look the same, right? But it says it didn't feel right. Why do you think it didn't feel right? That evening, Antoinette tried to fit in with her new sisters, but she did not like anything proper or precious or pink. Phooey. On the other side of town, Gaston tried to fit in with his new brothers, but he did not like anything brutish or brawny or brown. Ick. Antoinette and Gaston weren't the only ones who were having a hard time adjusting. Look at the poor mamas. The next morning, Mrs. Poodle forgot all about being proper and raced back to the park. Mrs. Bulldog was already there waiting with her burly brood. "Oh, it seems we've made a terrible mistake," she nearly shouted. "Oui, oui," Mrs. Poodle agreed happily. This time, Gaston and Antoinette wasted no time trading places. There, that looked right, and it felt right too. From that day forward, the families met in the park every afternoon to play. Rocky, Ricky, Bruno, and Antoinette taught the poodle puppies a thing or two about being tough. Likewise, Fifi, Fufu, Ooh-la-la, and Gaston taught the bulldog puppies a thing or two about being tender. And many years later, when Gaston and Antoinette fell in love and had puppies of their own, they taught them to be whatever they wanted to be. The end. Okay, so in prepping this story, I would probably talk to kids about what does a family mean, and do we all need to look alike to be a part of that family? So as charming and darling is this book, with the illustrations by Christian Robinson, of course, the bigger depth of this really is, what does it mean to be a family? So again, the beauty of some of these picture books is that they are cute and charming and fun, and you can use different voices, but of course there's some depth to them too that really gets at some deeper meaning, especially for little kids. So that is Gaston. When you have finished reading, there is a few things that are fairly important to do. If you're wanting to prompt discussion, it's really great to ask questions of kids, but ensure that they are open-ended questions, not yes or no answers, because of course the audience, each individual's interpretation will be different from someone else's. Some great questions to ask are, why did the author write this book? What is the message of this book? What did you like most about the book and why? And my favorite one is, can you make any connections with the book, either to yourself or to the larger world? That one's always fascinating, what kids say, and it helps me actually learn and be able to apply a book in a new way. But really, overall, the most important thing is to have fun. Kids know if you like books and if you like reading, because it is going to be very evident in how you go about doing that. So have fun and enjoy yourself. I want to leave you with a quote by the amazing, renowned, award-winning author Kate DiCamillo, and it says, "Reading should not be presented to children as a chore or a duty. It should be offered to them as a precious gift." And I want to say thank you, because you are giving them such a precious gift by doing a read aloud, and I thank you for that.